Hello everybody and welcome to this video on Death Stranding, the hotly anticipated Death Stranding, Kojima's first game since breaking free of Konami, and with Sony's financial backing, the expectations for this game were huge. This is actually Sony's big release for the Christmas season as well. This is the game that Sony's banking its holiday investment, its sales on, so pressure was very high, expectations were very high. Kojima really needed to prove himself with what is a very different vision. And I will be talking about that vision quite a bit in this video. That's the whole point of why I'm doing it. But just before I get into that, I wanted to quickly mention a couple of things. Firstly, I apologize if I have a bit of a lisp today with this video. I actually bit my tongue and I'm in quite a bit of pain as I record this, but I wanted to have a video up when embargo lifted. So if I do lisp a little bit, I'm really sorry. I know it's not a nice sound, but to hear somebody with a broken lip talking, but yeah, sorry about that. Second thing I wanted to mention is this is a new headset that I'm testing, and this is the first time I've used this headset for a video recording, so hopefully it sounds good. I hope it actually is better than the last one. This is the Stealth multi-format gaming headset, which was just released and just sent to me, so I'm testing it out. I'll try and find a link to the product page for this headset somewhere and put it in the video. So if you do like the sound quality, you're able to check it out for yourself. It works for Xbox One, PS4, PC, Switch, mobile, tablet, basically everything. It's a multi-format. Alright, with that, let's get on to talking about Death Stranding. I think for me the biggest thing about Death Stranding is the simple fact that it is a blockbuster. This is a game that had huge levels of investment, and as soon as you turn the game on you can immediately tell that a lot of money's been spent on it. The character models are incredible, the art direction is amazing, the world that you have to explore is huge and open. It's not an open world game in the same sense that you're probably used to, and we'll talk about the gameplay a little bit soon, but it is huge. As a technical effort, the amount of effort that went into it is truly impressive. So for me, that was the first thing that stood out, because this game does not behave like a blockbuster game on any level, and I think it's going to be very controversial for that reason. People are going to come to this because they know the brand profile of Kojima from Metal Gear Solid and whatever. They know that Sony is kind of the company behind very big releases, especially in recent years, and there's a certain expectation from a Sony game, and people are going to come to this game with a whole bunch of preconceived notions about what it should be based on how it looks and based on the profile of the game, and they are going to be either disappointed or quite surprised. And I think this is going to be a very polarizing game. When I record this, obviously the review embargo hasn't lifted yet, so I don't know what the reviews are like, but I think they're going to be all over the place. We'll see if I'm proven right once this video is live, I guess. But I think there is going to be a huge spread. There are going to be people that absolutely love this game, and for the record, I am one of them. I gave it 5 out of 5 in my review, which you can read on digitallydownloaded.net now. But there are also going to be people that rate it really lowly. I would not be surprised to see some red ratings, 4 and below on Metacritic, 4 out of 10 and below on Metacritic, because this game is going to be polarizing. There are people that either get it and really appreciate the vision of it and the narrative of it, or there are people that are going to get really kind of bogged down by the gameplay and the more irritating parts of it, because this is a creative vision. And I think we're so used to blockbuster games behaving in a certain way and being kind of games that are designed for everybody and being really refined kind of play experiences, that the idea of art as a blockbuster game is almost foreign. We haven't had an art house blockbuster game in a very long time. So on that level alone, I really appreciated this. And I say this as somebody who was not a big fan of Kojima in the past. I've always enjoyed Metal Gear Solid as kind of stealth action games, but people hold Kojima up as this great auteur, and he's not really. To me, he's not a great artist. His games have a very strong message to share, but it is quite a simple message. Metal Gear Solid, I'm talking about. They're quite strong anti-war, games, and they're quite, progressive, I guess, for want of a better word, in terms of the way that they present war and warfare in games. They're not Call of Duty, for example, but they're not deep, complex things. And then Kojima tries to spend 45 minutes with a cutscene trying to make something complex out of it, and I don't think he really succeeds. I've never been a huge fan of Kojima as a storyteller in the past, but this game is different. This game is complex. This game is actually really deep and really complex, and I don't think A lot of people are going to really dig into that, because a lot of this stuff kind of comes across as something that you need to have already experienced various kind of philosophy ideas and things beforehand. Kojima obviously has. I'm not sure a lot of players will have. For me, one of the things that really stood out, for example, is that this game is very absurdist in tone. Now, absurdism is a philosophy, I guess, a concept that has been around for quite a while now. Albert Camus being one of the great examples in playwriting, Samuel Beckett with Waiting for Godot and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of absurdist art out there, and a lot of people have experienced it without necessarily knowing too much about absurdism. But I think a lot of people hear absurdism and they think kind of humor and comedy and stuff like that, and that's really not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the philosophical side of, or the philosophical concept of absurdism, which is closely related to existentialism and nihilism and those kinds of other philosophies. This game is very absurdist. It is very much like Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a hill. So for people who don't know the Greek legend of Sisyphus, Sisyphus was a king, and he was a very cruel king, and his karmic punishment in the afterlife as such was to be cursed with pushing a boulder up a hill for eternity. As soon as it got to the top of the hill, or as soon as he got close to the top of the hill, the boulder would slip out of his grasp, roll down the hill, and he'd have to go back and retrieve it and try and push it up again. It is a very core kind of story to both existentialists and absurdists, because it kind of says something about the human condition and the way that humanity tries to make sense of things, or tries to push against the inherent absurdity and meaninglessness of the universe. So that's kind of where I got a lot of that out of this game, because a lot of this game is about taking stuff from one place to another, big burdens, just like a boulder, really, taking big burdens from one place to the other. And while I can't give spoilers, because that would be both cruel and breaking the conditions under which I got this game, from Sony, the later half, or the later, not even the later half, even much further on than that, the later 10% of the game really makes you question a lot of what you've done through the course of this game, whether you should have done it, whether there's been kind of value to doing so for the society that this game depicts, whether it was the right thing to do, and just whether any of what you've just done has meaning. And it's pretty intense. For so much of the game, I was kind of wandering through it, muddling through it, getting my way through, and there was always this sense that there might be something coming as I was playing that kind of really made me think about what I'd just done. And it comes very late. This is a 50-plus hour game. The last 5 hours or so is where all this stuff really happens. And when it comes, it hits you pretty hard. But it also can come across as very strange, very, very strange, if you're not really across all of these themes. So Kojima's asking a lot of his audience in this game. He's really asking you to do a lot of thinking, to do a lot of reflection, to really kind of try and understand what he's saying. And what he's saying is quite complex and quite difficult. And none of that, as you can probably guess, none of that is common to the blockbuster AAA kind of video game industry, which is why this game's so fascinating to talk about. And it really frustrates me that I can't talk about spoilers and things, because I want to. I really want to delve into this game. And hopefully, in a couple of weeks, once everybody's had a chance to get over the spoiler fear, we can do another video where we really kind of delve into some of these themes, because they're great. This is for somebody like me who likes their art and all that kind of stuff, this is the kind of game that I've been waiting for from the blockbuster space for a long time, and it's really converted me on Kojima as a storyteller. I now am totally convinced that he can tell some cracking stories. The flip side to that is a lot of people are really not going to like this game because it does not play well at all, which is a little bit unfair, but that's how it's going to be reduced. Death Stranding is not a video game in the traditional sense of video games, especially by the standards of blockbusters. It's not quite a walking simulator. I'm sure that term would be thrown around a bit, but it is a game in which the journey is 99% of the experience. So what you do is you get an order from one location, you throw that order onto your backpack. It's like a box of stuff, basically, and you then need to carry it to the next location. And along the way, as you do that, you need to link these places up so that they can start to communicate, and you need to basically make your way from the east coast of America to the west, linking these kinds of civilizations, these cities up and moving goods from back and forth across them. And that's kind of it. There's small sections where you need to be a bit stealthy because there's these undead menaces and called BTs, and the BTs will attack you if they notice your presence, so you need to kind of hold your breath and sneak past them. You also can't see them, which is where that baby thing that you would have seen comes into play. The baby thing actually is a bit of a radar which kind of points to you where these kind of semi-invisible monsters are. And you can also get a gun later on and explosives which can actually damage those beasts and those undead beasties, and you can kind of brute force your way through parts of the game that way. But none of that is the focus. The focus is very much on the journey, making your way across pretty rough terrain. You need to use ladders and ropes and bridges and all that kind of stuff to get across from one place to the next. But it's not really a puzzle, it's more just traversal. The whole game is traversal, and it can take a long time. I mean, when you're carrying 100 kilos on your back, you don't move very fast, and there's a real sense of slowness to Death Stranding as a result. The gameplay is very slow, it's very deliberate, it's very methodical, it's very meandering, and all of that's going to put a lot of people off because video games don't do that. Video games are all about being faster, being more action-based, being more, being more sharp, being more moment-to-moment, being more gameplay-ish, for want of a better word. To have something kind of reflective and meandering and sobering in tone is unusual. And the game really works in the sense that everything that it's trying to do, every bit of gameplay that it is aiming at, it achieves, and it achieves very well. The wandering works well. The use of items to get past difficult terrain works well. When you get vehicles and stuff, which makes it a little bit easier to get through certain areas, those vehicles work well. There's some online community stuff as well where you can work together to build bridges and to make the environment easier to get around. You can build highways and things like that as well. All of that also works well. So the game really works well. You'd kind of expect it to because it is a AAA blockbuster of sorts. But it doesn't work in a way that I think a lot of people are familiar with. So that's going to put people off. The game doesn't work in ways you'd expect in other ways too. I mean, there are boss battles of sorts, but those boss battles don't work as you would expect in a typical boss battle. There are collectibles, but they don't work in the same way that collectibles work in an open world game. You know, where with most open worlds from Ubisoft to Rockstar and Bethesda and all the rest of them, you would expect that an open world has things to do, places to go and directions and all that kind of stuff. And they kind of fill the map up with icons. But in this game, it's an open world game, but the icons are not there. There are a couple of side quests you can do, but a lot of the time those don't really give you much. I mean, the best thing I got out of the whole game was a fun kind of otter cap, and you put the otter cap on and you kind of, then cruise down the rivers, taking the form of an otter, which is amusing. But it's one of the few moments that there was something to collect in Death Stranding that I really wanted to chase down. For the most part, none of that is really there because this game is about. It has a very solid point that it wants to make, and side quests and all those kinds of things are a little bit of a distraction, so it doesn't do those. It doesn't have, I mean, the boss battle, like I mentioned, it has boss battles, but they seem almost there as a bit of self-referential comedy, if anything, from Kojima. The first time you fight a boss, in fact, which is played by Troy Baker, very good performance by Troy. He literally says, this is what you've been waiting for, game over. And he is literally talking to the audience when he does that. It's almost like he's challenging the audience to try and define this game by typical video game standards, and it just refuses to. It refuses to be treated like a typical video game. Kojima's a very stubborn person. I think that's pretty obvious just from the way that he presents himself. His creative vision, he doesn't want to compromise, and that obviously created tension within Konami, which is why he left. Now that he's got his own studio, he doesn't need to compromise at all, and he is clearly refusing to compromise. This game does not compromise on any level. This is Kojima's vision, and whether you like it or not, I don't think he necessarily cares. Sony cares. Sony's going to care a great deal if this game ends up being a bit of a train wreck in terms of the response that people have to it, but Kojima does not care. This is his creative vision, And that, for me, is good. All of this is great. Art shouldn't be something for everybody. A good artwork is something that some people are going to really dislike. In fact, a lot of people are going to dislike, and it doesn't matter what artwork you're talking about. You go to paintings, not everybody likes Picasso. Not everybody kind of gets Picasso's artistic vision. Same with Monet, same with Degas. You go to the ballet, not everybody likes Swan Lake, and not everybody likes every interpretation of Swan Lake. Not everybody likes Shakespeare. There are a lot of people that don't really get Shakespeare, what he's trying to say, what he's trying to do, and if you don't get what he's doing, then you don't particularly enjoy it. And that's art. Art is there to be interpreted, and as part of the interpretation, there is that kind of subjective taste that some people aren't going to enjoy it. And that's very different, because in video games, so often there's that expectation that a game needs to be everything to everybody, because otherwise how can you kind of justify spending the money making it? And because we productize video games so often, there's this idea that if I don't like a video game, I've been done wrong. I've spent money, I've wasted money on this product. I've wasted money on this content, and how dare the developer make content that I don't like? That kind of thing is quite common. That attitude is common to the video game industry, and the video game developers try to manage that by not upsetting people and making things that are everything to every person. It's really rare that we have a game that is so blatantly, clearly comfortable with not being liked as Death Stranding, and that's really quite noble. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this video. This video is a supplement to my review. My review goes quite in depth with the themes. There's no spoilers, I promise, no spoilers, but my review does go quite in depth with the various narrative themes that the game addresses, which is the key point of the game. It is a narrative based game, but I didn't want to talk about it in the video because the video can be a bit dull if I start talking about Camus and I go too in depth with absurdism and stuff like that. So this video is more, I guess, a general chat about what Death Stranding is, how it might be responded to, how people might respond to it, and why it's okay if you don't like it. Let's be really clear about that. It is very much okay if you do not like Death Stranding, because a lot of people are not going to like Death Stranding. That doesn't mean you've wasted your money on it. If you buy it and you don't like it, then ask yourself why. Have a conversation with yourself internally or externally if you want, I guess. But think about it. Engage with it. Come and talk to me about it. Get on the comment section. Let's talk about why this game didn't resonate with you. Let's get that kind of discussion going, because I think Kojima has done something really important here. He's created a genuine piece of art in the blockbuster space, and this is almost an experiment. If this doesn't work, if it fails, if people just hate it, if it ends up with a Metacritic of 2, and the comment section is just filled with people saying this game sucks, then we won't see any more kind of artistic experiments in the blockbuster space. This is Sony taking a big risk. This is Kojima taking a big risk. So I'm just hoping that people engage with this in the way that it kind of deserves, because I think it's remarkable. This is the top blockbuster game in quite some time as far as I'm concerned. I didn't think I'd enjoy it going in. In fact, for the first 40 hours of playing this game, you can check the comments in the DDNet internal Slack. Well, you can't, but if you were able to check the comments in the internal DDNet Slack, you would see me slagging this game off for pretty much the entire time I was playing it. But just that ending, and just the way it all comes together, and when you finally arrive at the meaning of what Kojima's talking about, this game just makes sense, and it's brilliant. It's really good. Congratulations to Kojima and his team. I hope he gets to do something else as wildly wonderful as this. And yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy all my videos, if you enjoy my slightly different take, I guess, sometimes on video games, please do back me on Patreon. It's not easy being different. I don't get the clicks that a lot of other websites get, and that means I don't support myself via advertising. I try and support myself via the community, and yeah, your Patreon backings really help there. I guess I should say subscribe to this channel, that helps as well. And if you want to see me have a crack at writing a story, there's also there's a visual novel that's available on Itch, which I'll put a link in below for, and yeah, it's mine. I wrote it. It's obviously not got the budget of Death Stranding, but I hope it's interesting for you. If you are interested, you can go and grab that as well, and that supports me. So other than that, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think of Death Stranding once you're into it in the comments, and we will see you at the next video.